This is compiled from the testimonies of a hospital corpsman referred to here as Doc and a Latino supply marine we will call Lopez. This retelling chronicles the events of Friday, March 3rd through Saturday, March 4th of this year, 2017, and the events leading up to that weekend. Their testimonies were sent to the landowner in the story who responded, "I have nothing to add. Change the names for decency's sake." Some names and identifying details have been changed to protect the privacy of individuals, and a resemblance to actual persons living or dead is purely coincidental. John Field bought a section of land 4 years ago, southwest of the Rodman Mountains wilderness area, 30 minutes outside of Palm Springs, California. The land had been known to have 2 dry gold mine shafts that had closed down after being no longer profitable to the previous owner. John made a post on a large, closed, privacy military social media page, advertising that he had large swaths of land in the desert, driving distance from 29 Palms, and he was opening his property for the weekend, allowing current and prior service military the chance to come shoot on his land, provided they help him explore and map out the mines, as the previous owners had not maintained the maps prior to selling. Over the following 2 weeks, a total of 32 Marines and sailors from 29 Palms and Camp Pendleton responded with interest. On Friday, March 3rd at 1300, people started arriving. The last person arrived in a rented camper/Winnebago, amounting to a total of 35 people, including the landowner, John Field. As the people arrived to the arid high desert property, Mr. Fields locked the gate onto and off his property. He claimed that while the nearest neighbor was 5 miles away, a 1-mile driveway and 4 miles on the state road, and that noise complaints/police visits were a very low chance. Any cops would be seen from miles off, and the gate would add extra time to stow any weapons of questionable legality. This is still California. And would provide valuable time to take alcohol from any underaged people. "I thought this was a bit of overkill," said Doc. "But it's his land. We're guests, and getting to dick around with some really cool guns at that. Nobody spoke up about it. I sort of appreciated it, having brought more than a couple 30-round mags from my pistol-build AR-15. My AR-10 is completely legal, and that's the one I wanted to sight in at 800 meters. Later, that locked gate would cause us more than a slight inconvenience. Locking the gate made sense, I guess, but the fence to either side was only barbed wire. My Enduro, motorcycle, wouldn't get through, but I could push it under the wire on its side if I had to. The Enduro is only 250cc, recalled Lopez. In the end, the camper made it through easy. I'm really happy Jimenez got the insurance on it, otherwise I'd be paying for our exit." The men who met on Mr. Field's property ranged from Navy, Marine, and a handful of prior service Marines. Due to only having 2 viewpoints, not all names will be known. We spent all that afternoon shooting. There was some rusted equipment left over from the last owners, Doc said. We spray-painted bullseyes on them. I had that 308 in really good groups out to 600 meters. But pushing it past that, I don't know. I just couldn't hold a consistent group. Jim and his civilian buddy, Tom something, I'm not sure, was able to walk it out to a full grand and made it look easy. Doc pauses in reflection. Later on, when we were shooting coyotes, he couldn't hit shit if it was moving, so I got him beat there. That night we all racked out in the yard, continued Lopez. One of the civilians was talking about the glory days, and was going on about sleeping in the field on forgotten ops, over romanticizing the shit. We laughed about it over a few beers and drunkenly agreed to sleep out there for the old guys. "Shit was terrible," said Doc. "I woke up stiff, hungover, and pissed off that I wasn't in my bed. I looked over and my bag had been dumped. I thought I had to be pretty drunk to sleep through coyotes going through my bag. 1 or 2 other bags had gotten the same treatment. Some guys whose bags had been left alone claimed to be missing little things. A knife here, a jacket there, no big deal though. Blame it on the coyotes." After we woke up and had coffee, Lopez started. We gathered for a safety brief-style conversation about how to proceed throughout the day. The general understanding, continued Doc, was that there were 2 mine shafts for us to cover, one today on this side of the property and then tomorrow on the far side. Mr. Field said that once we got inside the mouth of the cave, the process was relatively simple, Lopez said. We would walk into the main shaft, which then split off into 3 branches, and at the end of each of those branches, as they spread further and further distances apart from each, had offshoots from them, Doc explained. The primary 3 branches were at an incline leading down into the mountain, and the offshoot branches led down at steeper angles off the walkway, said Doc. We separated into groups of 10 and prepared to move into the caves, said Lopez. Nobody thought it was really necessary, but when Mr. Fields started insisting that we all carry at least a sidearm, some guys kind of chuckled. That's when I started to feel uneasy. We walked closer to the entry, and every red flag in me was saying, "No way," Doc said. Now as we begin to enter, it's at this point that Lopez started talking crazy. "No man, I'm not going in there," he said. "I don't know what's wrong with it, but I've got a bad feeling about going in there." Doc started laughing. "I have to trust my feelings. My grandma agrees it's like I have a 5th sense. I know when something bad is going to happen, and I'm telling you now, something bad is going to happen." As he said this, other Latino Marines and one Filipino sailor decided that they weren't going into the cave either. The 4 of them starred off to the side, steadfast, and convinced that they would not enter. They said that they would stand at the gate with guns, shoot beer cans, and play cards with anyone who wanted to stay, but they were all certain that they were not going in. Doc: "As I'm walking into the cave, the process got almost monotonous. Walk until you find a side tunnel, crack a chem light and throw it in. We were checking for drop-offs, turns, cave-ins, that kind of stuff. After about an hour of walking and finding some weird crickets and unusual underground shit, we came to where the mine opened into a room. Looking into the pitch black, it was daunting. You could feel the size of the place and know it was a big room, probably part of the cave system that the mine was carved out of. We stepped into the chamber and each cracked a chem light, reared back and chucked them. We saw that the room was loosely 40 yards wide, and I couldn't see the other end from where we were. The sound of the chem lights smacking the floor and walls as they were thrown echoed in the silence, and at the same time I heard a scrambling on the other end of the room. The sound bled into the echoes of the lights, so it was hard to hear. But as I strained to hear more, I saw movement, and I only saw the head of the thing. Now I understand that I was looking at nearly pitch-black darkness with only a faint green glow from freshly cracked, glorified glow sticks amping up in that awkward first seconds of life. I saw 50 yards out what looked like a big cat. I mean, mountain lion, but a little bit bigger, and it was a black reflection of shadow that seemed bordered by the green glow. Then it was gone. It ran to my right, out of the light. Doc: "The guys fanned out to the left and right of the cavern as I processed what I saw, then swung my flashlight to where the black cat had leapt. I could see an exit leading to the next section of the tunnel and dismissed it as freaking out a little from being underground, combined with Lopez bitching out earlier. My group followed the side exit from the larger chamber and ran into the second group in the middle corridor. I just about pissed myself, and I swear one of the guys screamed. At this point we were told that the other party in an earlier section of that same tunnel had been tossing chem lights into the side hallways just like we had been. One of the guys threw a chem light down a side hall tunnel, and 2 or 3 steps later it was thrown back. Nobody actually saw anything, and that group took a head count to make sure nobody had snuck off and was fucking with them. Somehow they rationalized it and kept walking until they encountered us. Now I know my group had 9 people, and I thought their group had 9 also, and when I counted them, sure enough, there was 9 guys standing in front of us. They, of course, started accusing us of stalking them and messing with them when there was a shuffling sound in the hall at the back of the other group. Someone had broke off at a dead sprint away from us, and by the time we had spun around and had flashlights on whomever it was, they had bounded around a corner and were gone. We rushed after and only found some discarded clothes in that side tunnel. One of the guys confirmed it was his hoodie that was missing from this morning. That's when we agreed that the coyotes from last night were in here, and that's what was happening. We were just intruding on them. I asked for another head count, 9 of mine, 8 of theirs. I asked who they were missing, and they said no, they'd only had 8 the whole time. I made a joke about Marines being shit at math, and that my superior Navy counting had counted 9, and we devolved into a bit of a clusterfuck over it. Then I heard 3 succinct reports of a gun. Guns are loud, way louder than movies make them seem, way louder than what you remember from range trips that had required ear protection. Gunfire when you are in an enclosed space is worse, and thanks to the acoustics of the mine/cave, it came from everywhere. Collectively, we decided while running, shitting our pants, to go back to the large chamber/room and talk there in a place we had room to breathe and think. We hauled ass into that room, and the 17 of us spilled out to having lights in our eyes and realized that there were guns on us. No one moved. I saw one of the guys, Tex, a 6'5" redhead redneck from, you guessed it, Texas. He was bleeding from an abrasion on his face and a steady drip of blood from his arm. Tex spoke up saying it obviously wasn't them, and that did the trick. Everyone relaxed a bit, lowered weapons, and my larger group what the fucked for a moment. I had my med bag because I'm a boot like that, and I sat down to bandage Tex. He got me up to speed. He had also had a chem light thrown back. It hit him on the side of the head. Tex falls into the category of people generally not fucked with, especially while carrying 45 ACP 1911. His response to having something thrown at him was to pick it up and shove it up someone's newly loosed anus. He had walked down the side tunnel and something had jumped out of a crevice in the rock wall, attacking him. The force of the impact bashed his head on the wall, tinting half of his vision red as blood sheeted his eye. With his only light being the chem light in his hand, he fought off some animal that clawed his arm and darted further into the tunnel as he drew and fired after it in the dark. That 1911 is what we'd heard. The third group had come running to the commotion and gunfire in time to see him back out of the side tunnel, gun still out, as he slowly backed away, leaving that chem light on the ground. Doc. Tex said his head hurts, but the cuts on his arm were numbing with the pins and needles kind of tingling, and was worried about shock. In retrospect, I wouldn't be surprised if that thing had some sort of natural numbing narcotic shit going on with its saliva. Talking to the groups, we agreed that it was weird we had started in different offshoots of the tunnel and all ended up in the main chamber. That's when we got a good look around. While we inspected the room, we found a couple smaller openings in the rock that varied in size from half a door and smaller wedged in between different rock faces. I think this is how the thing had been moving around with us in the main passageways. Then we found a nest. It was more of just mounded up fabrics and materials like a homeless guy would have, and it covered a larger space than just one dog would have. There were no bones or blood stains around, rather it was very clean. That stood out to me. The smell was like a musk, but not really anything that would make you gag. Just a very strong, musky animal smell. While the guys were inching closer to the pile, I started going back to check on Tex, who was watching the rear. He was almost dozing off as I got closer, and that's when I saw. I'm not going to defend this in front of people. You ever bring this up in person in front of people, I'll say you're lying and you won't be welcome in my house again. I saw this thing for the first time. It poured out of a hole in the wall about a yard wide, right behind and about a foot higher than Tex's head. It fell out of the hole. I swear it was a leopard or black mountain lion or some shit, but what landed was a black man. Nothing else about him was noticeable, no noteworthy traits or features. Just the most average 5'9", 30-something-year-old looking black guy you had ever seen, wearing nothing. He stared intently at the side of Tex's head and stepped forward. As he did, the room went quiet behind me, and my mind tried desperately to follow what happened next. As the guy took one step towards Tex, he grew almost a foot, and his skin lightened to a freckled pale. His overgrown, unkept, almost fro became red and shortened to a regulation haircut, and the thing's hand elongated to black talons as he reached back to strike. The motion of my mind catching up to my hand, which had drawn on its own and began to aim, caught not Tex's attention, and he looked up in time to see my pistol flash. I didn't hear the shot. My ears just started ringing louder than I could talk. 3 more silent muzzle flashes later, and not Tex had leapt into the same shaft it had slipped down from. I didn't check if I'd hit it or if there was blood. Nothing. Everyone got the message at the first shot fired. We were leaving. I don't much remember anything from the run out other than supporting half of Tex's weight as he was damn near sleepwalking/running out of there. He kept asking what was going on and if he could lay down. Once we got him into the camper, I'm told he slept all the way back to base. Someone told me 3 hours later he woke up hungover and dehydrated. I never heard the first gunshots, said Lopez, but I heard plenty as the guys were coming out. That's why I woke Jimenez, up and told him to start the camper. I was getting my guys and getting the fuck out of there. Let other people deal with the cops. I'll say I never left the barracks all weekend. They say it too now that I told them that's the official story. I reported the dirt bike stolen and got insurance to buy me a new one. Lopez. I had Jimmy pull the camper up at an angle so they could pile right in. In the driver's seat, I had my AR ready. I didn't know what for, but I was ready. These guys came out like roaches. Everyone scattered as they came out. Doc and the big redneck got in instantly. Dude looked drugged. He called him a slur, I'm not going to say that, as he stumbled on, but whatever. I watched as cars filled up and left down the drive, but they all stopped for some reason I couldn't see. After I had all my guys, plus a few extra I got while the getting was good, we were hauling ass down the driveway when I saw what had stopped them, the fence. I pulled onto the shoulder of the drive and then further off the road and squeezed that Winnebago ride between two of the barbed wire fence posts. Didn't feel a thing. We were out of there. Jimmy was a little pissed, but he got over it. Like I said, insurance. Doc, I got a ride back out later to get my car. All my shit was packed in the trunk. I wasn't the last person to get my car back, but I was the fastest. Mr. Fields tried talking to me when I came back, but I ignored him. Walking right past, got in my car and hit 60 before the open gate. I'm never going back. That's all I got, guys.